All right. Last week you started with sniffing into the camera. This week we start with rattling our empty glass into it. This is episode 50 of Krackle Comics Weekly. I'm Mike.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Vincent.
And gentlemen, how are we feeling this week? How were your comics?
The ones I read were all right. I didn't read a ton.
Yeah, well, Future State has made it so like the show breaks down in two segments, and it's like, oh, we only had like 8 books when normally we have like 15. So
Yeah, we kind of went. I initially was like, I'm gonna try all of Future State, and then very quickly, they actually came out, and I actually looked at what they are and who's writing and drawing them, etc. Nope. So I think this might be like one of our shortest shows, even if you combine the two segments. We'll see.
Yeah, because we've traditionally been doing this and then Future State after, and then like I don't have a lot to say on any of the Future State books. There was one I really enjoyed, and when we get to that, I'll be excited to talk about that. But I mean, we did have big releases this week, and I'll start us off with the second issue of Batman Catwoman, which it feels like forever since the first one came out. It was before Christmas, and they're sticking with the Christmas theme throughout it. And this is like 12 issues, and it's monthly, so the Christmas theme might be just completely burned by the time we're done with this. But this is Tom King, Clayman. Tomu Mori is on colors, and I did like this issue more than issue 1, and I have to say it was much more clear when the timelines were changing. That we were very critical about that in the first issue, if you guys remember. So not any of that weird panel layering that we saw from issue 1 either. So if you're listening, if that bothered you, that isn't here in issue 2, but the art still looks great. The running stories here, Bruce and Selina are now hunting Andrea as the Phantasm has begun targeting former henchmen of the Joker, obviously for revenge and information for her son's murder. So that's the story that's taking place in the present. The past is Selina making some backhand deals with the Joker, and it looks like she's now like probably involved in some way with the the murder of Andrea's son, and all connected to this golden cat necklace that was stolen by one of the Joker henchmen, and she made some sort of deal with the Joker. All that part is like all muddled right now because we don't know what's going on, because it's been 2 issues of a 12-issue maxi series, and it's a Tom King thing where you're gonna get bits here and there. And then the future stuff is Joker and Selina at that retirement retreat, basically having it out, and eventually it ends with Selina actually killing the Joker this time, because we thought she did that at the end of the first issue. So hey, plot thickens and mystery deepens here. I already said it, but I'll say it again. Clayman stuff is great. The sequence where Phantasm is chasing the one guy through like the subway station, that's pretty haunting and creepy looking. And also like the scene where Old Man Joker's like breaking down through like the door crack as he's firing the pistol. That's pretty creepy looking. Clayman draws a real scary Joker, so I'm glad to see that stuck around. But yeah, the rest of it, like I said, looks fantastic. More references to King's Run here too, so this is becoming more and more, I think, a layered thing where you have to have read the run to in between the lines get it. Where they reference the night before the wedding, which that would have been issues 48, 49, where there was that church shootout that happened with Batman, Catwoman, and Joker. And then he was like left pinching his artery because he was bleeding out. Also mentioned in the future, that was the first wedding. So Bruce and Selina eventually tied the knot in a second wedding, I'm guessing. So, sly move there to skirt around the whole wedding thing in my book. But are we ever going to see that? I don't know. It's good, but I mean, I struggle to call this great. It's been 2 issues, and we know it's just, plot thickens, moves deeper. So, all right. That's basically what we've come to expect from Batman Catwoman and Tom King Batman at this point.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Christmas song interrupting the flow of the book. But otherwise, the art is top notch. We get a little Grey Ghost reference snuck on a Subway advertisement, and the story, it's kind of trudging along. I don't know.
Yeah, it's trudging would be the way. Like, it's 2 issues, and it doesn't feel like we get a lot out of the 2 issues we've got. So that's the thing. And I will agree with you where, the song kept interrupting the dialogue, and that was a problem.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is a lot the same as the first issue, really. I like it, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I think, are we all left wanting more? Is that the thing to say here? Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but also, like, if we're just padding out these issues, like, we could get more information. Like,
yeah.
I think especially with the whole killing of the Joker thing, that could have been done in issue 1 and not stretched out to issue 2, I felt.
Yeah, it's a tough balance to get, like, not putting too much into one issue, but also not, putting in not enough. But I don't know. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Vince, you read Rain Like Hammers?
Yeah, so this is written and drawn by Brandon Graham, who's done all kinds of stuff. I'm a fan of his work, and I swear he's been working on this for like 2 years. I remember, I follow him on social media, and every once in a while he'll mention, "Oh, this is coming," down the line, where he'd show like just a little peek at the artwork. But time is weird recently, so kind of confusing. But it's finally here. I think it's monthly, so maybe he kind of tried to draw a ton of it ahead of time before soliciting. The title page says the word elephant, and there's all kinds of elephant like imagery here. And there's also a giant vehicle / building kind of thing in a barren landscape. So that plus elephant, I thought of Halo 3. But the main character, Eugene, here, he works and lives in this big complex. There's something about soil samples. He eats this weird, like, soylent like food, like little like blocks of honey, things like that. He saves his money for his favorite broadcast, so I guess it's like a pay-per-view kind of thing. And we get to see some of one of the a piece of one of those broadcasts where it's like this weird detective. It's almost like reminiscent of like The Shadow, but he like pulls off his nose to like sniff things. It's really weird. And overall, I'm kind of getting a vibe of like a mix of like Snowpiercer with that one Black Mirror episode where they ride the exercise bikes. But I don't think there's actually anything too sinister here. It's just kind of this like vaguely depressing, like future kind of timeline. By the end, we see that another of these giant cities has broken down. So there's a mystery at hand. And there's also other elements like the main character kind of reminiscing about like his education and moving and things like that, and also missing a girl. So the editorial in the back in comic form, which is cool to see, refers to this as a process comic. So it's kind of Brandon Graham processing through certain, thoughts of his and memories and everything. And there are clearly lots of autobio elements underneath all the sci-fi. In fact, I believe Graham literally has a tattoo of an elephant on his neck, which I think the main character does too. And obviously, there's lots of other elephant stuff here. I'd recommend checking this out, mostly for the art, but I probably won't keep covering for the show just because it's just not quite that kind of format. And I'm not 100% certain if it's perfect for serialization, but this is how he's releasing it, and hopefully it gets good sales. And I'll probably pick up, whatever kind of collection it's in.
Okay, so moving into our next issue, we have Black Cat number 2, written by Jed MacKay with art by C.F. Villa. Black Cat and her team equip themselves with anti-venom suits and use the efforts of a ghost dog named Bats, which is actually Doctor Strange's dog. So they are on a mission to save Doctor Strange from Null, and he's basically trapped in like a giant, like Venom Lindor truffle. That's the way I kind of say it, or it's a globe, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, Black Cat uses a goblin glider to head over to the prison where Doctor Strange is being held above the Chrysler building, of all buildings. Deep inside the prison, Black Cat uses her own suit to get in there and place an anti-venom suit on Strange. and they break him out, and then they're chased by a bunch of Null monsters, and Black Cat's group shows up in the spider buggy to kind of break them out. So we get a good kind of cool action scene of them escaping with the buggy, and they actually crash the buggy and are surrounded by these Null monsters, where Black Cat takes this magic wand that Strange has had during this whole time he's been imprisoned. I'm not sure if he used it back in King in Black or if he was going to use it or whatever, but Black Cat takes it and turns herself into an Asgardian goddess. So Strange is still passed out from being rescued, and that is where our story ends. We have all these Null monsters kind of closing in on Black Cat and her group, and now she's like a full-on Asgardian goddess ready to take on the group. So kind of cool to see like that transformation. That's kind of like something that was used intermittently in her own like little series before this, with Iron Man's armor and stuff like that. So it's cool to see her like get this like Asgardian goddess like outfit from this wand. So we'll see kind of how that turns out, but I liked it. I mean, I think it's really good. I mean, Jed McKay and Sia Villa, it's the same group from the previous series, so they know the character, and I think they're doing a good job. I mean, this is definitely a cool tie-in series that I don't think detracts from the story at all. I think it's pretty cool, and I don't know. I like the character. The dialogue that's going on, or the monologuing that's going on with this character, I think is really cool. We get a lot of backstory on her, how she's handling everything. So we'll see. I'm trying to get my co-host to actually read some Black Cat, so hopefully I can convince them at some point.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll convince me, but from what I've seen, the series looks fun, and it's lasting. This iteration is lasting at least 5 issues past King in Black. So it's nice that they had the events as an excuse to kind of bump the sales up. And on that note, in King in Black #3 by Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman, we open with Blade helping with his vampire army. I'm not sure where that came from. I assume that is something that happens in Avengers. And then Eddie Brock is dead. I feel like at the end of the last issue, I don't remember. I honestly, for parts of this issue, questioned whether I skipped an issue, but I'm pretty certain I didn't. And again, maybe some things happened in Venom in particular, if not other tie-ins, such as Black Cat. But I remember Noel basically like dropping Eddie from like a roof, and I guess maybe he didn't have the symbiote. So I guess obviously he was going to die, but he's dead, or at least seems to be dead here. Then we get Dylan is very upset, and he's kind of has to lead the charge against Null. And we get the epic moment where he grabs Cap's shield because Cap is like has been symbiotized, and so Dylan frees him the symbiote, grabs the shield, and then Cap wakes up. And I think he gives the shield back off panel later. And then Thor shows up to help as kind of a Deus Ex Machina type figure because it's Donny Cates. That's his other main title that he's working on. He does have a really badass splash page with some John Workman inspired letters where he just smacks Null on the head. But then Thor gets stabbed in the back, and the symbiote Celestials start wrecking shit. But Tony Stark comes out of nowhere with an extremis infected symbiote dragon, which is a complicated phrase of words in a row. And then he hijacks a Celestial so he can play Pacific Rim and punch other Celestials. And then our final Deus Ex Machina for this issue, and possibly for the series as a whole, as I guess you would possibly expect, Silver Surfer shows up, and he's still in his Silver Surfer Black kind of appearance from that miniseries, also by Donny Cates, on the final page. It's pretty hype, I guess. Art is super impressive. I already mentioned the splash page with Thor, the splash page with Silver Surfer showing up. You get like 2/3 of a page of Iron Man riding the dragon. It's cool. It's kind of a weird situation where like because Marvel literally just announced the end of Donny Cates' Venom run. It's going to go through issue 34 and then jump to 200 because that's how math works. And both this and Absolute Carnage, they obviously, flow directly out of Venom. And every once in a while at both companies, you'll get an event like this where, a creator has their event and it's intrinsically tied to a title and it feels kind of like just a spin-off of that title. And I think Donny Cates has done a pretty good job kind of straddling the line with this and Absolute Carnage, where it does feel like a legitimate line-wide event. And obviously, Marvel's marketing team and editorial hyped that up with a shitload of tie-ins. But it also does feel so much tied to Venom. So, like, having not read Venom, which I intend to eventually, there's like a bit of missing context. I mean, you're fine without it, but I don't feel as invested as I'm sure Mike does.
I have two things for this. So, number one, when Thor punches Null, is he punching like off his jaw or something? Like, what is that?
He punched his jaw off.
That's pretty dope. And
it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's probably one of the best splash pages I've seen in a while. The other thing, I never thought I'd see Iron Man like controlling a giant venomized dragon before, so that's a first for me. But yeah, this is just very like over the top, just crazy. But I honestly thought it was pretty good. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is your main event, big Hoss fight between, you got Null smacking with Thor here, and that's real fun, especially with Ryan Stegman's art. Like we said, like the whole splash page where he knocks Null's jaw off is pretty badass. Like it's really fun and cool and look at. And then like you get the ending where Silver Surfer shows up, and we all loved Silver Surfer Black. So I'm at the same time going, all right, I'm pretty hyped for what's going to come. Because like I stick with my mantra now is Donny Cates equals fun. This still equals fun. And with that, the stakes get higher. Eddie is dead currently, but he's like in his spirit symbiote realm in his book. So not really anything that you haven't missed there. And then if you remember / if you read the Iron Man Dragon thing comes out from that Iron Man Doom one shot that we got. That was a time during our hiatus. That came out that Cantwell wrote. That was really, really good too. My only thing is like I know all of those things and the beats there. I'm wondering does this make more sense because I was reading those, and that's why this event feels more connected, or is it just a better, much more laid out event than Empire was? Because if you look at Empire, this and like War of the Realms, it's essentially the same event where Earth is overrun by insert force here. And that's the whole reason why all the heroes are showing up. I think another thing, too, is like the X-Men are directly tied to this, too, which was not a thing in Empire. Like, they had their little things off in literally their own books. Like, we literally see Xavier and, like, Wolverine working with the team here, which is, I think, another thing that, like, it's like a very small thing that makes it feel connected. But no, I mean, the Stegman art here is incredible, like it always is. Vince, you've advocated for it. Go to Amazing Spider-Man and you're done. I feel like he's got to be up there at this point as one of the major Spider-Man artists that, to my knowledge, has not drawn Amazing Spider-Man. So it'd be fun to actually get him to finally see him, draw the mainline book. But overall, this is still fun, and it's still, Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman knocking it out of the park and delivering your big popcorn main event. And that's what it is. So, like, if you don't like that, obviously you're not going to enjoy this. But if you're following like through Venom, through Absolute Carnage to here, you're going to get more out of it. But I also don't think you're going to get a lot more out of it than you wouldn't. Like it's pretty much laid enough that like it's fun and exciting either way. But I think the deeper cut is if you've been reading all of Donny Cates' other Marvel work, you're going to get much more out of it than if you've just read Venom. That's my take on it. But like I'm still enjoying it. So, and with that, like, if we good with this, or we want to move on?
Yeah, that's good. The only thing I'll note is Stegman drew, I believe, like he's drawn like 3 issues of Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
He did like an issue right before Spider Island, and then he did the 2 actual issues of Amazing that are part of the Venom Inc. crossover, which was like right before Donny Cates took over Venom, so it's actually kind of interesting that that's how it worked out.
So it seems like much more spot work, not like here's a story arc.
And then, I mean, you may not count this, but he was technically the lead artist on Superior Spider-Man. I mean, he only did like, let's see, eight of the 32 issues or whatever. But he did the first couple, and he was technically the lead artist on that. But you may not count that, anyways.
I would. And then Amazing Spider-Man.
And then he was the artist on the And then I mean, we've already mentioned he's done tons of ancillary stuff besides obviously Venom, but Scarlet Spider, the Renew Your Vows ongoing initially. Those are the main things, I think.
Yeah, and of course we've talked about Scarlet Spider in the past. That was one of my favorite books when it was coming out. That was Chris Yost, right? Chris Yost's segment. It was a really damn good series. But I'll go to the conclusion of another big. It's not an event book, but like it felt like one, which was DCeased Dead Planet #7. Tom Taylor, Trevor Hairsine. It's the big finale for this sequel series, which it's had multiple offshoots now. This technically might be like the third sequel series, but the other two, I believe, were digital books. This is the first sequel that was in print. So the JLA is fighting the Amazo robots, while Batman and Superman have to look where to stop them. So they go to that bunker where all the villains were held up to try to find Professor Ivo, and they're stopped by the Penguin, who he tries to turn their guns, his men's guns on Superman, but all these guys are like, "Hey, we're not gonna shoot Superman." So then all the villains just like start dying, and because turns out John Constantine was there, and he needed like one more power boost, so he used Ragman's cloak to sweep up all their evil souls. So he's like, this is the last place in the universe where the most evil's concentrated. So he gets his one little power boost, so now he can go fight Trigon. That was pretty cool. And like I said, he goes fights Trigon. This cleans up the case for Superman and Flash to go spread the cure around. John starts fighting Trigon, and he gets killed, prompting Superman to go turn the tide and go basically like lays out a haymaker on Trigon, which, oh boy, one final twist. Constantine had stolen Boston Brand's powers, so he's also like become Dead Man. So he uses the abilities to fly into Trigon and stab him with the Spear of Destiny, and that kills him. So the JLA has saved the day, vanquishing the Amazos, stop Trigon, and they cure the 2 billion people left on Earth of that anti-life virus, and boom, the heroes have won. Overall, kind of love the ending. Taylor with some superb and powerful Superman scripting and moments here. And I have to say, I loved it, but there's still some loose threads like Undead Darkseid, and Clark Kent Superman is still in the sun and infected, so maybe another sequel series on the way eventually. I think there has to be one, especially in a world where we love trilogies and we have these threads, dangling here. And with how big of a success this has been, I can't help but see that we're going to get another one down the road eventually. But this was easily my favorite DC series of 2020, and this is a fun cap-off issue to that. And I'd fully bet money on another DCeased tale from Taylor down the line here. And Tom Taylor became I became a very big fan of Tom Taylor throughout 2020. So looks like the next spot we'll see him for DC is on Nightwing, but I think there's going to be another DCeased series down the line here.
All right, cool stuff. Our next issue is another #1. So Iron Fist, Heart of the Dragon, #1, written by Larry Hama, with art by David Watcher. Our issue starts off with Iron Fist in Manhattan, with Luke Cage watching Pei. Have not read a lot of Iron Fist comics, so I'm not sure if that's like his daughter or his sister, or I don't know who that is. Apologize. Iron Fist goes off with Fu to the Undercity. We get a few cool panels of Iron Fist kicking ass against these like zombies in the Undercity. After defeating some of the enemies, Iron Fist meets up with Dog Brother, who tells Iron Fist to go to the Citadel of the ancients to protect the dragon. Because I guess somebody's going after all these dragons and killing them. At the Citadel, we discover that Taskmaster, of all people, has broken into the Citadel and killed the dragon and has taken its heart. Taskmaster and Iron Fist fight for a little bit before Taskmaster escapes. We get some pretty cool panels. Like they're fighting on like these like pikes like that are like sticking out of the ground. And there's one panel where Iron Fist kind of falls through and he catches himself like with his legs, like kind of like holding himself up like on each with like each pole. So that's kind of cool. Back with Luke Cage though, we see that Lady Bullseye has showed up to take Iron Fist's like little like pet dragon, I guess. And Luke Cage and Pei kind of like hold their own against Lady Bullseye until Iron Fist and Fu show back up to repel the kidnapping. And our last page kind of ends with Kuan Yin, Mother of Mercy, showing up, informing Iron Fist that the tiger's daughter was killed and the dragon has been slain as well. So Iron Fist is on a mission, it looks like, to go after Taskmaster and whoever else is trying to kill these dragons and put an end to it. So for someone like me who has not read a lot of Iron Fist stuff, this was actually pretty easy to follow, and I feel like it moved really quickly. It was definitely interesting. I think I'll stick around for another issue. I know Vince had some good words to say of it too, so I will defer to him now.
Yeah. Honestly, I went into this when I heard, because I don't know, it's hard to say, when Marvel announces something because they have like 5 new number ones every month, so it's hard to tell what they're really investing their marketing and time into and what they think is supposed to be a big deal and what's just kind of like, we got to put out a series of this character now, for trademarks or whatever the hell, or because there's a mobile game out soon, or who knows. So I saw like Larry Hama writing an Iron Fist miniseries, and I'm like, initially my reaction was like, okay, that's kind of weird. So I didn't have huge expectations coming into this, but I ended up really enjoying this. I like how Hama. I mean, Dan was talking about how he hasn't read a ton of Iron Fist, but was totally fine with it. I think this perfectly balances that, where you can come into this totally blind, but Hama's literally picking up from all over Iron Fist continuity. Dog Brother, who Danny runs into here, is from the Brubaker Fraction run, and that's like 10 years ago or more. Pei and the Little Dragon are from the Kerry Andrews run, which is the Iron Man Living Weapon ongoing series, and then the digital first, or maybe OGN first, I don't know, Immortal Iron Fists miniseries. And she's essentially like Danny's adoptive daughter now, I guess. So, and then he's pulling villains from all over the Marvel Universe, which is kind of similar to what we've been talking about with Cantwell's Iron Man run, which we've really been enjoying, like Taskmaster and Lady Bullseye, kind of surprise picks. But as far as the martial arts angle, the street level angle, they're totally they totally make sense for Iron Fist. The action is all strong in the writing and the art side, and I dig this for sure. It's kind of house style, but in a good way. Like, it's not like the art is boring. It's like this kind of feels like an old comic book, and I guess that makes sense because it is Larry Hama, who obviously had celebrated runs back in the day. But it's kind of dope that this is Hama on this, because he was actually the artist for Iron Fist's second ever appearance back in 1974. And even on that level, like, I expected, like, Larry Hama probably be decent, but I feel like this doesn't, even though I said it's kind of old school, doesn't feel dated at all. And this dude is 70 years old. He's 71. And that's pretty impressive. Like, get Larry Hama on some more things. And I guess he's been cashing the check on, he's still ongoing, writes comics ongoing, because he's been cashing that check on G.I. Joe every month for like 25 years or something. The one last thing I'll say, I'm definitely sticking with this as well, but I hope that Luke Cage is as prominent in the rest of the series. Like he's a big deal here, and he's hanging out with Pei and everything like that. And in the end, it's basically set up that Luke's going to help Danny. So I expect he'll be in this, and they're just calling it an Iron Fist issue because they wanted to put out an Iron Fist series. But obviously, always liked seeing Danny and Luke. The one kind of nitpick is I feel like there are like one or two lines specifically from Luke Cage which sound kind of weird, but just don't think about it too hard. Otherwise, I thought this might, I mean, we'll reveal later, but this might have been the star of the week for me.
You hear that, Mike? Jump on the train, the Iron Fist train.
Oops, I muted myself. I'll run into X-Force number 16 by Ben Percy, Joshua Cassara, usual team. So what's happening is there are these like zombies washing up on Krakoa's shores and attacking people. It seems to be a mutation related to Krakoa itself, or like almost like a cancer. It's not 100%. I'm not 100% clear on this, but it's infecting dead sailors that are in like a sunken ship. It's not clear if this whatever's going on sunk the ship, or if it's just been a ship that's been in at the bottom of the ocean. Beast and Cecilia Reyes are trying to figure out from kind of the medical and biological angle. And the source is way deep underwater, where the ship is, or where it dragged the ship down, or whatever. So Wolverine, Forge, and Quentin Quire put on some gross diving suits to do some fixing. And it's cool to see how fast Logan sinks due to his weight. He gets kind of ahead of the others, and he runs into this big old eye with tentacles. And then Quentin fights a bunch of fish. And I'm joking a little bit, but it's actually pretty badass, especially when Namor shows up in spite of his stupid costume, which I think Cassara probably sells better than any artist I've seen, even though I still hate it. But Namor makes a good point, essentially asking, like, is Professor Xavier using Krakoa, or is Krakoa using the mutants? Obviously, or it could be neither, and it's mutually beneficial. But Namor kind of helps them solve the problem. They're like fighting something or destroying something, but it's not 100% clear to me if what they're I don't think what they're dealing with is actually what Logan saw earlier on. I think they're two separate things. And then Namor tells them to fuck off. And it's kind of interesting because he is a mutant and everything. I was kind of waiting till we got more and more Namor content in the Dawn of X. This is a great issue. Cassara's style is just perfect for this issue in particular, kind of the deep sea aesthetic, and then all the fish and the monsters and all the, creatures of the deep. I thought this was perfect for Cassara.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. It was a strong issue of X-Force. Well, not to say that there's been like times in the series where I wasn't enjoying it, but no, this was real fun, especially with like Forge having this giddy smile on his face because he gets to test out like multiple gadgets at once here, which was pretty fun to see. And I like the meme of the book has been Kid Omega gets killed like every 2 issues, and I like now that like he's smart enough to know to like look behind him. Because he had that moment where it looked like he was just going to get killed again, but he like managed to see it, and he made his little mental gun thing and ended up being able to fend for himself. So like it was like small character moments of growth like that too, which also makes it fun. And it's kind of like why I think Ben Percy likes to reward you for paying attention in like little subtle ways throughout. Which it's weird how this worked out, but our retro book this week is a Ben Percy issue, which I'll go into that because I don't have anything else really to say on X-Force 16 other than the Cassara art was great and I enjoyed it. So really everything that Vince covered I just wholeheartedly agree with. But so I'll go right into Green Arrow number 30. This is from November 2017, which I think this is definitely like the latest retro book we've ever had. And I do have to preface this by saying this is only like 4 years ago, but feels like forever ago. That's just how time moves now, I guess, especially because, 2020 felt like 5 years. But this has been Percy and Otto Schmidt. And yeah, definitely. It also, I think it's weird too, because like this is issue 30. The book was canceled at issue 50. And essentially, Green Arrow has been in limbo. Like, we haven't really seen him past issue 50. But we will get to see him again as leader of the JLA when Bendis takes over the helm of JLA and puts him and Black Canary as, like, I think leaders or I think they're either leader or co-leaders on his Justice League run, which we'll see in March. But anyway, this is part 5 of the hard traveling hero story arc where Ollie's taking across America to fight the Ninth Circle, which is like this evil conglomerate which overtook Seattle, which was at this and the Rebirth continuity / line. Ollie was calling Seattle home again, and they transformed that into Star City. And so Ollie has to team up with his old buddy Hal Jordan to get into space to take down their comms array satellite that they're using to spy and for intelligence. And the B story sees Black Canary and Emiko Queen trying to find like these missing and captured children and coming face to face with the auctioneer. I think this is a pretty good issue. I think it's actually probably very good. Otto Schmidt gets to have a lot of fun with the constructs from Green Lantern, and Percy's work, like his character work on Ollie, is really, really good. And then Percy also sets the tone pretty strong from the beginning as Ollie's processing all the worries of, the American people, but also with himself. Obviously, that's written at a very different time of, right after, 2016, 2017. And, different events have happened recently, which I think some people may be starting to get away from those feelings, but it's only been a week, so we'll see. But like I said, 3 years, but feels like forever. Then this was one of the best and I think really good runs from Rebirth that was like celebrated. I think this is all out in one hardcover too. But yeah, this is really, really good. And like, I like how Percy makes reference to obviously the Green Lantern, Green Arrow era, but this is essentially like a re-meeting of the characters here, where we hadn't really seen Hal interact with a lot of the DC characters because Hal and Pals was taking place all on the far reaches of space, while the other characters were on Earth, obviously. So they're addressing the major history. We even get the construct, like when they go into space, they're in the pickup truck. So it's, I think, a pretty good way to balance like the years of history these characters have shared, but also like reintroducing them to an audience in a new but still familiar way. I really enjoyed this. And then Otto Schmidt's art's always fun to look at. So
of all the things to fly out into space with, why would you pick up pickup truck?
Because that's what they traveled across America in Green Lantern, Green Arrow.
I don't get it.
Because you didn't read some comics from the 70s. I'm glad we landed on an issue of the series actually drawn by Otto Schmidt, because he didn't do the entire run. The art is fantastic here. You did mention something about a hardcover. I can confirm one hardcover was released with like the first 10 or 12 issues, and then they never put out a second one. So nowhere close to this issue in hardcover. In years, I kind of question it. I mean, it's really only the first page that is kind of political. But yeah, you can't help but question if some of this is going to feel a little heavy-handed in like 40 years. But that's kind of Green Arrow tradition, particularly with this throwback arc, which throws back to those 70s comics that we were mentioning, that those ones are pretty dated and heavy-handed in some respects. But some of them held up and it's still classic. And I think this is definitely a great Green Arrow run.
I have to say it's also like it's familiar but different also. Like when you look at the variant cover for this issue, it's drawn by Mike Grell, but it's not Mike Grell doing the old school Green Arrow costume. He's doing the Rebirth costume. So once again, I mean, obviously it not part of that story, but it is like same but different. And it is weird to see like Mike Grell like break out like, all right, there's Mike Grell drawing Green Arrow, but like it's Rebirth Green Arrow with Hal Jordan. So I don't know. It was like a more things change, more they stay the same kind of deal with me. But obviously that doesn't pertain to the content inside.
Yeah, not quite as weird though as when he was doing those Arrowverse tie-in comics.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it's Mike Grell art. It is Mike Grell drawing Green Arrow. Like those are interesting. Would be a fun thing to analyze sometime because it is so weird. Like he did a lot of those issues too. But overall, how do we feel on this issue? We all enjoyed it. I feel right. It was good.
Yeah.
I hope we don't keep drawing retros from like only 3 years ago because I don't know. It feels like it's a decade old, but it's not. I don't know. It's weird. But that's just DC reboots every 4 years too, so that doesn't help.
Yeah,
But
I mean it's totally all random number generation, and I have the latest date. I have the latest year at 2018, and now
yeah,
I'm almost considering, since the year passed, should we make it 2019?
no, we just read.
We could
Yeah,
be recapping issues that we recapped in the Students of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast.
I don't want to even think about doing that. All right, picks of the week.
I'm gonna give it to Iron Fist. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. I'm gonna give it to Iron Fist, but I will say X Force was definitely one of its best issues of the series so far.
I'm probably gonna have to go with Iron Fist 2. I think King of Black is a very close second, but
I'm gonna go DCeased. I thought it was a really good finale to my favorite DC book of 2020. Once again, the Future State books were open to choices here. No one chose a Future State book. All right. I find that interesting. 3 weeks in.
I didn't really realize that they were open to choices, but I don't
we
think
made them open last week. So if you want to change it now, go ahead.
No,
I don't think so. I mean,
Right.
yeah, we'll get to it. One of them would be close, but I don't even think it would be second place. But we'll talk about that in our other segment.
But yeah, that's the regular show for this week. Stick around. We'll do Future State right after this. But as always, stay safe out there and have a good one.